It's Toronto's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Hi everyone, I'm Phil Bliss, a business visionary, and welcome to Toronto's Podcasts, part of the Canada's Podcast Network, your source for great insights from entrepreneurs across Canada. For the past decade, Taylan has been leading the talented product team at Hipo and helping brilliant startups go from a small team with a good idea to multi-billion-dollar companies. He is both artist, engineer, and innovator, the startling collection of talents. Hipo is a brilliant example of a company that has grown through its own self-sustaining investment and discipline. Hipo specializes in providing startups with two critical things: flexibility and quality. So Taylan, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, give us the details on your current business or businesses, just, a couple of minutes on who you are and why I'm talking to you.
Okay, great. So I'm originally from Turkey. I was born in Istanbul and I came to Canada just under 20 years ago to study. And then I had the chance to work in the tech industry for quite a few years. And then around 10 years ago, I decided to build my own, launch my own product consultancy called Hipo. Since then, I have been building, helping startups, especially early stage startups, build and launch products with my team. We're a remote and distributed team, and we worked on a lot of different verticals: education, healthcare, smart home systems, and it's been a lot of fun seeing the impact of these products on people's lives.
So I'm always interested, what was your stop moment, when Taylan said, I want to become an entrepreneur versus working in a tech company, or, what made you break out and do it, lead yourself kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's one I've been thinking about recently because I don't know how I did it. It seems like such a big leap, right? Well, for me, the turning point, and I remember this vividly, was the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, I loved the idea, and I don't know if you remember, but the first demo on screen, when the moment you saw that glass screen and you could see the icons behind it and you could tap on them, that was a magical moment for me. So the iPhone wasn't available in Canada until I think the second version, really. But I managed to find like a shady, place on Spadina. I remember I went there and they were selling them. They were importing them from the US. And so I bought one, and nobody else had one, and I started playing with it. And then the first SDK came out, and I said, I want to build applications for this. It's just too much fun. It's in your pocket. It's amazing. This is the future. So I built a little application. It was an IMDb client, and it allowed you to search for movies. And I put it on the App Store, and it wasn't easy because I wasn't used to the C programming and all of that, the technical details of it. Right. It took me a while to figure it out, but I launched it. When that started making some money, it kind of just opened my eyes, and I said, I could actually do this. This could be a business. So I think about 6 or 7 months later, I quit my job, and I decided to start really freelancing as an iOS developer.
Okay, good.
That was the beginning.
So that got you sort of beginning, but you've built significant business. How did you get from, I can make money from this, to that focus of, I can make a lot of money from this?
Yeah.
There's a big shift. It's not just the money side of it. There's a whole bunch of other things. So I don't want to focus just on the money, but interested,
Yeah, I think, it wasn't really, I can't say that it was planned. I kind of got pushed further and further into it against my own will, because what happened was, there was a lot of interest in not just iPhone app development, but also, on web and server, cloud systems.
We're in a similar business. I get it.
So, you get it. It's like there's more and more demand. And I think I had to learn on my feet to really, in terms of my limitations, not just time limitations, but also, my abilities as a developer. And I started working with other people. And at first the thinking was, oh, I'll just hire one person, and then that became two people, and then that turned into managing a team. And then, at some point we started saying, oh, 10 is a good size, we should stay there, and it's great. And then it became 20 people, and then it became 30 people. And, and all along the way, I think we were really cautious, and we managed to scale the team up in a really, really sustainable manner, because that really mattered to me from day one. I didn't want to be in a situation where, we didn't have enough work, so we had to lay off people or anything like that. So we were really careful, but it was, more and more interest in our work that kind of pushed that slowly.
So thinking of that, and we kind of covered this a little bit in the intro, how did you finance all this? I mean, I know you've kind of gotten some advice in terms of financing and investment that you want to talk about with other entrepreneurs. I'm interested to get your input on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's my point of view is that I wanted to be in not just in a sustainable business, but also in a way where, I didn't want to scale beyond our means too quickly. That was, to be honest, it was too scary for me. I didn't want to be involved in a business that was just high velocity, growing beyond my understanding. And also we were big believers in bootstrapping from day one, even before it was cool. I mean, it's, we wanted to own our business. We wanted to understand where it was going and control, what kind of business we want to build. The team culture was really important for us. So I don't think that you can build a great team culture when you're, scaling a business at really high velocity. It usually comes as an afterthought, whereas we want to focus on the team, on the people, and really, approaching it like a family where, you're building these products together. So I'm really proud that we were able to do that. And we have, people in our team who have been with us for over 6-7 years, and we're still working together, and people are happy doing what they do.
So, especially in the tech side, I mean, obviously, if you're not bringing external investment in, you're making profit, you're making margin, you're allowing self-growth. How do you, is there some kind of trick there where that allows you to do that versus the sort of, I think the kind of innovation center stuff where people are, have the great idea, and the next thing is, how do I raise $2 million to make it happen? Is there a different formula? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's, of course, our approach is different in the sense that from day one, we were a consultancy. So we had cash flow, right? So that cash flow allowed us to kind of first build some, some revenue that we can rely on, and then make sure that revenue was sustainable, which took us, I think, at least 2-3 years. And then once we reached that point, and then we had some overhead within the team where we could say, okay, we have 10 people working, but actually I could have my infrastructure developer not work on a client project for a little bit and focus on this new product that we want to build. So that it's kind of, evolved from that idea where like, okay, we are sustainable, we are able to generate some cash flow, and then we can invest in ourselves. So, our strategy was, instead of bringing in outside investment, let's just invest in our own business and our own products, because we love building products and we love launching, especially in the technology industry, like developer products or, simple consumer products. And that's kind of what we focused on, especially in the early days.
So let's move from the fiscal thing and say, what does a typical day look like for you? How do you operate? What do you do? What's your cycle in terms of workload, if you like?
So my days are pretty routine. I like my routine. So I get up at 6:45 every day. I have my 7 a.m. Gym CrossFit class every day. I go to that. That's my 1 hour of meditation, I call it. It's very active meditation, but it works for me. And then I'm back home, I shower. My wife is getting my 4-year-old ready to go to school. If it's nice out like today, we get on the bike and we just cycle to school for 10 minutes. I drop her off, and then by then it's around 9 a.m. and kind of my day starts. 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. is my breakfast time, where I can listen to a podcast, walk back home or cycle back home, get a coffee. And then really my day starts then. Like, it's just meeting after meeting. Usually my mornings are my meeting time. So until noon, maybe 1 p.m., I'll just do back-to-back meetings, a lot of one-on-ones, team huddles, checking in with people, all of that. And then my afternoon is my quiet time. It's when I do more focused work. So I'll sit down and do, whatever needs to be done. Usually nowadays, it used to be more like development and coding, but nowadays it's more, contracts and investigation and research into new tech and stuff like that.
I love doing everyone's. I work on exactly the opposite thing.
The opposite.
I get up early like you, but I do all of that. The sort of the non-meetings in the mornings, and then the opposite in the afternoon, kind of thing.
Yeah, and also one detail about this is, like, I think I would prefer to do that, but because our team is remote and a lot of people are in Europe, I'm kind of forced into this schedule because the morning is the only time I can do meetings. But it works. I make it work, and to be honest, it's not so different. But it is a hectic morning.
My CTO has that thing with our team in Europe as well. So do you think entrepreneurs have to be weird or unique? In a positive way, are we wired differently, or is it just sort of, is there nothing special about us?
I don't think about it as special, but I think there's definitely something different. I think it's about risk aversion. I know a lot of people, even some people in my family, who wouldn't be a good fit for entrepreneurship. I don't think not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not that it's a special thing. It's just because they would be too anxious. And like, I think if you're running your business and you are just riddled with anxiety, that's not healthy. So, I think there's a feeling today that a lot of people need to be like, everyone needs to have their own business, or everyone should be an entrepreneur. I don't believe that. I think, you have all kinds of people, and not everyone is fit to own their own business, because it is a very anxiety inducing profession, or, category of profession. So it's definitely not for everyone. And you hear a lot of positive stories. You always hear the success stories, but being in the business, I know that also a lot of people fail, and it can be devastating for some people. So I think, whoever wants to be an entrepreneur needs to do some soul searching to make sure that they're okay with it first.
Okay. So what books are you reading now? I mean, you're a podcast listener, and I know that, or even audio books, what could you recommend for our listeners, other entrepreneurs that, that you think, may give them some insights?
So I'm a bit weird when it comes to books, because I used to read a lot of nonfiction books, like a lot of people in the industry. And then 2 years ago, I made the call that nonfiction books, or, whatever category you want to call them, didn't really help me. I wasn't getting a lot out of it. And I found that they were really kind of repetitive. So I switched to reading fiction only. So for the last 2 years, I've been reading fiction, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of, hard science fiction, like real science sci-fi, as well as some of the more kind of philosophical, like modern philosophy, but set in kind of most postmodern literature. And I find that it gives me a lot of insights into how people think and how characters think, and like getting into a character and thinking their point of view, I think is a great way of learning from a product builder perspective, because you really look at things from different people's perspectives really better.
And we deal with a lot of nonfiction in the daytime, so
it's a nice change of pace.
Nice
Yeah,
change.
for sure. So recently I finished reading New York 2140 by Kim Stanley Robinson, I believe is the author's name. And it was an amazing book, amazing book on, like, it is sci-fi, but it's really more about like a post-climate change world, looking at it really realistically from an economics perspective, from a social and building structure, and all these things kind of combined into one. Is almost like a nonfiction book about like research into the future, but with a great fiction component. It was a lot of fun.
So how do you balance work and play, and how do you relax? What's your sanctuary? What are your favorite activities in the GTA or near GTA? With or without the family? How do you go? How do you get away from things?
I think a lot of it comes down to really being disciplined about how much you expose yourself to in terms of work, because work for an entrepreneur never stops. If I wanted to work 24/7, I would have work for 20. I wouldn't get bored or run out of things to do. So it really comes down to discipline for me. I make sure I have at least 1 to 2 hours of playtime with my daughter. That's really important to me. That's probably the most important meditative part of my day to day is, that evening playtime is amazing. I make sure I put away my phone. I don't look at it. It's any email, any message can wait. I have a great team that I can depend on, thankfully. So it of course makes things easier. But I think it's important to set aside time for that. And then the other side of it is, apart from the physical kind of daily activity and the gym, is I love cooking. I try to cook at least once every 2 days or so. I'll do a big meal at home, and that's a really nice kind of way to clear up my mind and calm down a little bit. Whatever is happening that day can stop for a bit. Those are, I think, my really most favorite activities. And also, I've been really good for the last few years. I've been really good with not working on the weekends. I'm pretty proud of that, especially since my daughter has been growing up. It's you have to spend that time. So, we do a lot of kids activities and go to, theater plays and stuff like that, concerts. Toronto's great for that. So it's fun. Yeah.
Well, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would be your profession?
Carpenter.
That's
I think. I don't know. I love the idea. Not that I ever did like any carpentry work, but I love the idea of being a carpenter for some reason. And I know it's a bit of a cheesy cliche now. Like a lot of software developers say they would be carpenters, but I think I would be a good carpenter. But my dream would have been to be an astronomer or something, like to work with space and science. But I don't think I would be good at it.
Well, what job wouldn't you want to do?
I wouldn't want to do. I wouldn't want to do. I'm really bad at like sales, or I'm not good at selling or really networking a lot. Like it's not natural to me. I can force myself to do it, but it's not. I don't think I would enjoy it if it was a full-time job for me.
What's your favorite word, sentence or whatever that you like to use?
Let me think. It's not the end of the world. a lot of work that we do today, especially in tech, it can feel like, there's a bug or there's an issue. And especially for my team, they really get anxious about it. And I'm usually of the mindset that, it's not just going to burn down and like, it's not going to kill anyone. Don't worry about it. Just chill and, we'll solve it. I think I say that a lot.
What's your least favorite word or sentence?
Let's deploy this on a Friday.
No Fridays, no.
So many times I got burned by that.
So if you had to pick 1 or 2 words to describe Taylan, what would they be?
I'm very focused. I heard a lot of people say this about me. I can really focus really hard on one thing anywhere, in any situation. I've been good at that. And I think I'm I'm also able to really understand people, empathize with what they're trying to get out of a situation. And I think that's been a good trait to have in product building.
Okay. What keeps you up at night? Or maybe nothing, I don't know.
No, there are different things. It's usually stuff about my daughter nowadays, she bumps herself, or like she fell down the other day and bumped her head, and like I kept checking on her, and that's probably the most anxiety inducing thing in my life right now.
So here we come to our question we ask everyone across the country. You've probably heard it, and you may be prepared for it. There's a small tropical island just off Fiji. It only has a phone booth, no internet. We drop you off there. You don't have a computer or a smartphone, tablet, anything. You can use the phone booth to call us, and we'll come pick you up. How long would you stay before you need to make that call? And what would you do while you were there?
Good question. I think I would last a day. Probably. I'm not great in isolated environments or even outside the city. I'm a very city person. So probably a day. I'll give myself.
Istanbul to Toronto. You're a city person, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a city person. I don't. Some people think about retiring in the country and all that. No, not for me. Never gonna happen. So I like the city, but I think I'll give myself a day, and I can fish probably during that time. I'll try to build something.
Yeah. If you had a key piece of advice that you wanted to pass on to our entrepreneurial audience, what would it be?
I think a lot of people spend too much focus on the business, and it creates a lot of anxiety, like we've talked before. Mm-hmm. I found that focusing on your family and friends and yourself actually really helps with the business. And I think this is a rhetoric that's getting stronger and stronger nowadays. It doesn't used to be that way, but don't feel pressured to work 20 hour days, because I don't think that leads to success. I think being true to yourself and understanding your needs and desires, and also helping yourself be healthy, is really the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And then comes the business. No matter if you're starting a new business or, if you're 10, 20 years into it.
Yeah, it's that kind of beware of the entrepreneurial ceiling, which is basically 80-hour work weeks where you just don't get there, kind of thing. So how can, that's really, really good advice, by the way. How can the listeners get hold of you? And is there anything like you'd like to add, before we call it a day, kind of thing?
No, it was great questions. Anyone can reach me on Twitter at Taylan Pince, or I'm always happy to answer questions, or I get a lot of emails, and I'm the kind of person who's very OCD about email. I will answer everyone, and anyone can reach me at Taylan@hipolabs.com. It was lovely to chat with you.
Well, thanks, Taylan. Very interesting, and I think some really terrific points in there for our audience. Appreciate you coming on the show. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's it. That was super. That was good fun. You see why I like video, because it does.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah, for sure.
I can't deal without it. But thanks very much, Taylan.
Thank you so much.
We must meet in Toronto. I'll check in with you later.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please reach out if you're.
I was reading your background. I'm probably 30 years older, but there's a lot of.
There's a lot of common ground.
I'm still doing it. Okay. All right, guy.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye.